Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, here discussing all things pest. We want to remind our audience to join in on the revolution. That's right, join in on the conversation, be part of the society. Pest Geek Podcast Listeners Group on Facebook. And we're on YouTube, we're on the web, pestgeekpodcast.com. Check out there the notes, everything that we put into the podcast. They're all on there. And now for today's topic.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am your host, Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek. Hey, and we're going to be discussing the top 5 pest control field service technician skills needed to be successful and the generational challenge that we're facing. Now, if you're a small solo operator and you've been a solo operator for a couple of years now, and you find yourself that you either need to hire a part-time technician, a full-time technician, you want to grow, you just simply need help on the route, you're not looking to turn over the business, you are basically the face of the brand, and you're just needing help to get the work done because you're overworked and you can't take any days off, and maybe you like to take a week off. And if you're in the South, you never get to take a week off. But if you're in the North, you might get snowed in for a couple of months, and you've got a little vacation time. Wherever you're at, the situation is different for everyone based on their goals and their vision and mission for their company. You might decide you want to be a solo operator for life, and all you need really are assistants. And that's a bit easier to accomplish than having full-blown technicians that you're going to train, that you're going to send out, and you're going to start building routes, and you're going to basically start teaching and training pest control technicians. Or maybe you're looking for just that water technicians where you already hire technicians that come with experience from another company that somebody else has trained. Either way, you have challenges. We all have challenges. There isn't one system, one way of doing it, one method that's going to work for everybody everywhere, because the problem that you have, especially with independent operators, solo operators, and small companies, is that your needs are different than a 12, 13 route branch that you might have worked in or operated. And you're going to find that the challenges are much harder. I've done a couple of podcasts on this already as far as hiring. And let me tell you something, guys. This is about the most challenging thing in growing a business is scaling. And being able to scale is not only capital intensive, but it's also resource intensive. It's also attention span intensive. It requires you to be hands-on for a very long time. Even though you hire a technician, even after 3 months, they're still got to do all the administrative stuff, and you've got to do the sales, and you've got to do the managing now, and you've got to do the training. And it's very taxing on people. Why do you think that I've not been able to do as many podcasts as before? I thank God that Stephen Van Tassel has stepped up and decided he wanted to crack at this to do wildlife, and he's a wildlife expert, and he has stepped up to the plate to take a lot of this so this podcast can keep going, because it would have been very taxing on me with the growth that I'm experiencing, the pain that I'm experiencing, the challenges that I'm experiencing in my market. And I can only speak about my market and the journey that I'm going through, and this is what I'm going to be focusing on. Because I think we have done I did about 150 or more, 175 podcasts on nothing but pest control training. But we're going to be focusing on moving forward a lot on basically customer service training, sales training, hiring training, pest control training. We're going to be putting up the academy, which is one thing I've been working on for a year now, trying to figure out how I'm going to put this together that has value, that I can create a great product for you that you can use for new technicians, that's actually going to work, that's different than everything everybody else is putting out there, because I hear the complaints about the other things that are out there. And I've been working on that diligently for a year now, and we're getting ready right now to invest in the recording part of this. And it's going to be video training, not audio training. So it's not going to be an audio podcast. It's going to be a video training podcast, actually a video training platform, an entire platform that we're working on building for this, where there's going to be the modules, there's going to be the examination. So it is verifiable training. It's not that, hey, I watched the video and so what? I'm trying to create a product that is 21st century, millennial, and iGen ready, because that's where we're facing. Most of the programs that are out there right now are actually a Gen X ready, and that generation is running companies like you and me. I mean, I'm 49, heading to 50, and we need to get with the times as far as training. So I want to talk to you about the top pest control field service technician skills needed to be successful, and why this is becoming so difficult to accomplish. And we're going to be discussing that. You got to understand that if you're a field service technician, you're thinking about becoming a field service technician, you work in a business where field service work, the reason I have a perspective on this is because I was doing field service work back in a different field in computers, where I used to be the IT guy, and I was doing field service for a large company. We're talking going back to 1991, 92. I mean, I was working at Epson Computer Systems, building computers, back in, 88, 89? So we're talking about a long of doing field service work and repairing systems and being out in the field, dealing with clients, doing customer service. I spent, 35 years in professional sales, as a sales manager, as a territory manager, as a national sales rep. I mean, I get what we need. And what I see that independents that become, that were good technicians, that for one reason or another decided to open up. Usually it's a reluctant entrepreneur. They lack the training skills to train and develop other people. They're excellent at themselves knowing this stuff and self-studying. They're self-driven. They have great social skills. A lot of you have great communication skills, but you can't find the people that have your skills set. And why is that a challenge? So as a field service tech, you understand, the face of the brand. And what you got to understand, that pest control in itself is a commodity. The only differentiator is your unique selling proposition is the brand and what that brand represents. And for independents, that brand is you. And what you're worried about is some guy is going to go out and ruin your name. And that's a possibility. If you're not careful, it happens all the time, because they're representing you personally. When you're starting out, when you have a larger brand, the brand itself is what's valuable, not the commodity. The chemical is a commodity. The service itself of spraying is a commodity. I mean, when we look at what we do as a pest control business, what we do is not really all that difficult. The technical part. I was having a conversation this week, with my senior tech, and he's been with me now a year. And he says, I just feel that I need to go out and get more training. And I need to do more training. And you talk about it, and he listens to the podcast and listens to what I have to say. And I think that training, but understand this, what he feels he needs in training and what he really needs in training are two different things. And I sat with him, I sit down about every 3 months, evaluate where we're at, where we need to focus on, where we need to grow as a person. And I'm more focused on them growing as an individual than as a technician. And the question that I ask, well, okay, you need more training. What particular training do you need? I don't know. I just feel I need more training. Okay, let me ask you just a straightforward question. In the last 90 days, how many pest problems have you encountered that you were not able to solve? None. Okay. How many new pests have you encountered in the last 90 days that you did an ID and you put it in a baggie, you sent it to me, I was able to ID it and get back with you within a day on how to solve that problem and teach you how to solve it? One. So what exactly do you need in training? Because we talk about, this is a training podcast. I am the world's #1 pest control training podcast right now. Tomorrow that can change, but right now, that's where we're at. We're focused on training. We're focused on getting you the best knowledge. And I said, what do you feel you need? And he feels he needs more technical training. In what? In what chemical? How has the protocol changed? The SOPs, the standard operating procedures changed in the last 90 days? How many callbacks are you getting? The callbacks that we were getting, we modified the protocol because we noticed a deficiency. I said, you realize I went out in the field and he said, I'm getting callbacks on all this and we're getting callbacks on these same accounts. So I go back in the field and I said, and I walk with him through the property and says, what do you see in all of these accounts that are getting the callbacks with the same ant species, a ghost ant? What do you see and what do you evaluate that it is identical in all of them that are getting the callback, that none of the other accounts are getting the callback? He looks at me and looks at the house and he says, I don't know. And I said, they all have 1/3 of the property blocked off by concrete. They have a pool and you can't spray those surfaces. You're doing crack and crevice entry. And where are we finding the ants? Let's go out and see where those ants are coming through. And we went out and guess where the ants were? All of them on those houses were up in the gutters. They were coming in from the top of the window. That is not in any manual. It's not, I gave him the field service manual. He has a Malice's guide and pest control business guide. And you look at that and say, okay, that's how they're getting in. So we went ahead and we modified the protocol for houses with pools that have access to a lot of water, concrete all around. We modified it and we've gotten rid of those callbacks. All of that had to be done in the field. He's asking me to send him to training. I said, everything you're going to learn from now on, you're going to learn from experience in the next 2 to 5 years. But in order for you to become an expert, you got to put in the 10,000 hours. You got to spend the next 2 to 5 years experiencing things that you're never going to experience in a classroom. Because I've been in all the classrooms and I'm telling you, there's nothing new under the sun in there. A new product with a new way to treat something. But you got to learn the problems with structures by observing and get out of production mode for a minute. And when you're challenged with a problem, take a step back and look and see what is causing the problem. Get out of the what to do and why is it happening. And that is a skill of troubleshooting. That is an observational skill. And what he comes from a mentality because he has a degree in teaching. And we come in this information age where we're constantly being bombarded on Facebook. We need to take the new course and this and the new course and that. And this whole mentality on learning and accumulating knowledge that for most of the part is not going to be useful. And what is it that you actually need to be better and get your job done and be better at it? And I started evaluating and says, here's where you're deficient. You're deficient in your people skills. You're deficient in your follow-up skills. you're non-responsive. You need to be more responsive, faster with people. You need to learn how to manage. Think about this for a minute. That van is a storefront. It needs to make sure that that van is cleaned. You need to check the air in those tires. You need to do a whole bunch of things to manage that route efficiently. You need to learn to manage your chemical efficiently. You need to start working on your management skills, and you need to start working on your sales skills, and you need to start improving your communication skills, and you need to improve on your social skills, not your technical skills. And he's looking at me like, I didn't know I had those deficiencies. Nobody's ever told me that. Mind you, this is a millennial, a late millennial. And I'm like, how has nobody ever told you that? And I said, I know where your deficiencies are. I know where your problems are. I want you to focus on developing you this year. I want to invest. So I gave him all my management books. And I said, here's my library of management books. Here's what I want you to listen to. Here's what I want you to grow on. Here is how I want you to handle and learn to handle this customer problem. I need you to grow, as it isn't being a boss and being a teacher isn't about dictating material. It's about learning how to train people. And he is the face of the brand. So if people are not liking him, they're not liking our brand. Their success in the field is measured by the experience they provide to each customer. We are no longer in the customer service field. We're now in the customer experience field. That is the new terminology. And the problem that you have is a lot of people who are baby boomers that are still running companies are still dealing with service techniques and customer service and things. Look, a lot of this is common sense to you. It is not common sense to a millennial or to a new Generation Z or iGener. This stuff is not common sense to them. Common sense is behind a keyboard, behind a text, behind an iPhone, texting short messages, not being face-to-face with someone. And that's the challenge that we have in hiring people, that you do an interview and they might do okay. You do a personality assessment and you get a picture in the personality assessment. But then, how are they really with their social skills? How good are they really with their communication skills? How responsive are they? How's their presentation? How do they look in front of other people? How are they at following up and following through? And that right there, that last one I just gave you, I'm giving it to you last and I'm giving it to you up front right now. Follow up and follow through. That perseverance, that responsiveness to follow up on things is what's going to make an excellent technician. I don't care if you're doing computer systems. I don't care if you're an HVAC technician. I don't care if you're a plumber. Follow up and follow through is one of the soft skills that you need that have nothing to do with technical skills. None of the things that really make you successful have to do with technical skills. They have to do with social, personal skills. And what's lacking in this generation, in Generation Z and millennials, Generation Y, is the lack of these personal stellar skills to provide excellent customer service, to provide an excellent customer experience. Because what they're confusing, and what a lot of people are confusing, is the fact that I did my technical job to perfection. They have no ants. They have no roaches. But because you did not communicate effectively with the client is now having a negative customer experience. because of something that's not even related to the pest control. You left the gate open. You forgot to knock on the door before you performed the service, and the wife was outside in her bathing suit and the husband is upset. Understanding all these paradigms and all these things that have to do with customer service, that are things that you have to integrate into a training program. You have to integrate into a training program that if the van vibrates when you hit the brakes, the discs are warped. This is for a Gen Xer and for a person who's owned 17 vehicles. This is normal. This is not something that a Gen Xer a Generation Z or a millennial necessarily has any experience in. You have to teach them what a clean van looks like. Most of these guys have never driven and they're 25 years old. You have to bring in all these factors into your training now. I did a survey on every, this was a couple of months ago. I did a survey on every platform that has to do with pest control, every face group. And I posed a question, how old were you when you started in the industry? Were you between the ages of 19 and 25, 26 to 35, or 35 and over? Here's the reality of what is in the industry. Most of you started in this industry, about half. It was actually half or more between 18 and 25. Guess what? That's Generation Z right now and the end part of generation of millennials. And most of these kids today, I started working when I was 16, 17. They're not getting their first job until they're 20, 21. They have no experience working. They have no experience in what it is to have a face-to-face conversation with an adult who is 30 years older than them and being able to communicate on that level. That requires training because they don't have those. It's common sense. No, it's not common sense to them. To them, common sense is posting on Facebook. It's being on TikTok. It's being on Instagram. It's, whatever chat is now in. This is a generation that can figure out how to operate any system yet can't have a face-to-face conversation. That's the challenge that we have. So now there's people available to work. They're not really attracted to being out in the field sweating. They're out there, but it's much harder to find them. And then when you do find somebody, they don't have the soft skills and you need to do a lot of training. And that's what the problem is. What companies agree on, all service tech companies, it doesn't matter what field you're in, whether it's plumbing, HVAC, network systems, they all agree that the number one challenge we have is soft skills. Over 50%. Yet, around 18% are actually investing in soft skills training for their people. There's a big gap between what we say we need, what we need to invest in to develop people. Because Generation Z, iGeners, are very, very interested in programs and working for companies that will do the training because they don't want to be $150,000 in debt like Gen Xers have been to then go get a job as a barista at Starbucks with a master's degree. They are a lot more conscious of that. And if you got an apprenticeship and you've got upward mobility and you got a fast track to something, that's going to be very attractive to that generation. But you got to have it in place. And why do I focus so much on infrastructures? Because I see this coming. I have enough experience. I already got 50 years on me to know, hey, I can see I've done enough work with youth for 20 years to understand them, to reach them. And I see this coming and I said, we need to figure out how we do this. So our goal is to hire those kids because those are the kids that can crawl into the crawl spaces. Those are how many of you listening to me right now that have been in this business for 35 years are not overweight with some type of problem on your knees or in your back and you can't make it through a crawl space anymore? How many of you can crawl on your belly for 30 feet in a crawl space anymore? You can't. You're hiring millennials, and here's another problem that I want to address, and we're going to be discussing this. This is a touchy one. But the level of obesity in this country is affecting the amount of people that we can hire to do this job because they're obese. They can't do what you need them to do physically. So now you have another problem to deal with. They all agree technical skills are number 2. Cross-training between sales, service, and management is a big one that you need to do. And then management development. And a lot of small companies say, I'm not going to have a management development course because I'm only going to grow to 2 or 3 people. I'm not planning to go. So you're going to be training a lot of people for them to move on from you. Understand that is the reality. That if you're a good, solid, small company, you're going to train a lot of people for them to move on. And what I'm focused on right now is cross-training my tech and management training after a year. Because he's got 95% of this covered. The stuff that he comes across he can't solve is very rare. And if he's tried 3 times, our protocol is if you tried 3 times and failed, then I need to get involved. And I only need to get involved maybe once a week, if I'm lucky. Here is the other problem that we have with generation, with iGeners and Gen Xers, and millennials, is that 84% of iGeners believe they have the skills necessary to be successful in a professional environment. 21, 18, 19, 20, 21, 25-year-olds, 84% believe they have the skills. Yet the research shows, and our experience shows, that this is not the case. There's a delusion between what I think I'm qualified to do because they're applying for the Facebook jobs. They're applying for the social media manager position, for the social media guy. They're not applying for the I need to go out into the field, talk to human beings, face to face, smile, have a positive self-image where I'm neatly groomed, because my customers that buy pest control are boomers and Gen Xers. That is the majority of pest control buyers right now. The problem is we have iGeners are going to be 36% of the workforce within the next year. They're ill-equipped to handle pressure. They're ill-equipped in life to handle real situations, human situations. They're ill-equipped with the tools they need because high school didn't provide that for them and neither did college. They're walking out into the world, and we need those kids. And I call them kids because when you're 50 years old, pretty much everybody else is a kid. We have a big problem with iGeners and self-image and positive self-image with how they feel about themselves, with a positive attitude. They need to be able to smile, have a positive attitude. They can't be crabby around people. They can't be timid around people. They need good manners. They need to make eye contact because your boomer clients and your Generation Egg clients are demanding that because they're the client. And they're saying, what is that important if I look somebody in the eye or not? The fact that you are in the customer experience business. You're not in the technical pest control business. Our business is a human service business where the emotions, you spend more time managing the emotions and the doubts of people. I spend 80% of my time talking to people about how they're feeling about the situation they're in because they got roaches and this and that. And when I'm selling, I'm consulting and I'm calming them down and I'm assuring them of our qualifications to get this done for them. Has nothing to do with the technical capability. They need to do the best they can at putting that customer at ease when they're in that home, because the customer is going to bombard them with questions. And when they're in that home, the customer needs to feel that they enjoyed their service experience with that tech. Those are social skills that are lacking in millennials, especially late millennials and iGeners. Communication skills. Let's get into that. They're not engaging. In other words, they feel more comfortable sitting in their bedroom texting with their friends than they are meeting up with their friends and looking them in the eye and talking to them and engaging with them. There's a serious disconnect in this generation where this is needed. They need to be engaging. They need to go in and talk to the client and say, where are you experiencing that problem? When did you last see the pest? Where did you see it? Was it at night? Was it in the morning? And have a conversation. Because that customer is in the home, that customer is going to tell you exactly where that problem is. Every single time. If you listen to the customer, if you're a good listener, doing active listening, showing empathy, which is a big problem that we have, we're not very empathetic. Being able to talk to customer in relatable words, not pestinese and being technical, so that you can feel superior because you have a self-esteem problem. Because this is a big problem with this generation in self-esteem. I test people after people after people that we're testing. We're seeing very low self-esteem in all of these studies that we're performing. And when I talk to them and I'm having a conversation, you feel the problem that they're having and why they're having it. Depression is a reality in this group, which means, hey, you gotta be able to deal with him being depressed that morning and not being in his best. These are challenges that we're facing as recruiters. I'm talking about, it's in our protocols. Every time you have an appointment, that is, we do mostly exterior only. We only have about 1, tops 2 appointments per day, where we actually do need to do an indoor service because we're doing an initial, we're doing a follow-up, or we're doing a callback. Callbacks are in the less than single digits right now for us. It's mostly follow-ups because there's a difference between a call-up. We have a different category for a callback than a follow-up. Simple communication. Hey, I'm confirming. If you got a 4 o'clock appointment, you text that customer in the morning before you leave, and you say, hey, remember, we have a 5 o'clock appointment today. They've already gotten a communication from us. They've already gotten an email and a text the day before confirming that, and the tech is confirming that because stuff happens during the day. 1 hour before to 30 minutes before you go out to that stop, you need to call that client and make sure they're going to be home. I'm running late. I forgot. I texted you this morning. How can you forget? They forget. You don't show up at a customer's house without texting them or calling them and having a communication first in advance. You don't make that trip. We eliminate that problem saying, how long do we stay at a house waiting for a client that we had an appointment? If you didn't communicate that appointment and found out if that person was home before you drove 30 miles, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. And I told them that before. And how many times you think, yeah, but we already have an appointment confirmed. Didn't you confirm the appointment yesterday? I said, what's our protocol? You make the call. You know how I had to train on that and drill it through their head that they still needed to call the client and confirm that. Customers appreciate being told you're on your way and how long you will be. As a matter of fact, clients are now demanding, and most other pieces of software out there are showing the client where you're at on a map in reference to their home. If you're the Uber driver, that's on that app. They're expecting that from you in the communication. This is part of 21st century communication. I want to know. I've had customers tell me, I want a snapshot of your screen showing me where you're at and how soon you'll be here. If you're running behind and you know you're running behind, don't wait till you're in your last stop and you're 30 minutes late to call that client and say you're running behind. Explaining what you found, how you're going to solve it, and then afterwards how you did it, what you did, and then the realistic expectations that they're going to have in this. The tech needs to communicate that. And sometimes this is where you have callbacks and complaints because the salesperson never explained the realistic expectations. Neither did the CSR who set the appointment. And the technician is in the field and saying, here's the realistic expectation after I did your service, what you can expect. And they don't want to communicate that because they get very introverted. And they don't want to be the person that puts that count at risk. And you know what? I give my guys total autonomy to say, guys, here are the protocols. Here's the standard operating procedure. This is what I told the client. And if the client tells you any different, I'm telling you the client is lying. Because I'm a robot when it comes to that. Following up after the service is priceless. Communication after the service. What all my competitors are selling, you know what our secret is? We sell one more follow-up service than all my competitors. Everybody's selling a one-time service or a one-time service with 2 services included. I'm selling 3. I've sold 3 for the last 9 years. I produce more revenue per client, but I manage the expectation, and my clients will not raise their prices to do this. And why? Because we know that we will solve 80 to 90%, even 95% on 2 visits. But that 3rd visit puts the nail in the coffin. For that 5%, they know that we followed up every single time. Even when they call us and says, no, you don't need to come. Hey, no, my tech has to be out there because he's going to find a problem. Following up. Why don't we have callbacks on our lawn and ornamental? Because my tech knows that if he shows up and there's fungus on that lawn, he's got 14-day follow-up automatically. No questions asked. He puts it in the notes, and we create the follow-up service order for him to go out there. No questions asked. I want you to confirm that was controlled because these are premium clients paying a premium service. See, that's our difference. So why we can't grow at a rate that everybody else is growing? Because we need people that can do all this. We need people that say, hey, you can't, my tech can never come back and say, oh, the reason I'm having all these callbacks is because you put too much on my route. No, because you only have 8 appointments on your route maximum per day. And you may have 1 appointment per day that's timed because I know what it takes to get across the city. And we have a 2-hour window on every appointment, meaning the customer cannot expect us to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning when we told them it was going to be between 10 and 12. And when we communicate that from, it's going to be between 10 and 12. Because you get out of your house, there's 3 accidents on the way. You spent an hour and 30 minutes in traffic sometimes here in Miami. Setting that communication up front is vital. Setting that communication with the technician in the field, with the client, makes him a professional. I want the client to respect my technician more than me because he is the expert on site. When the tech calls me, no, the client isn't listening to me or whatever. Who is the expert on site? I am. It's your job, not mine. Solve it. Deal with it. What do I need to do? Tell him this, tell him this, but you got to tell him, not me. If I tell him, you lose credibility. I take that from you if I do that. You're the one that needs, and they don't want to have those difficult conversations with, and I force them to have the difficult conversation because it's too easy to call 1-800, who gives a crap, and complain. It's your job. I'm not going to take that from you because then you're going to come back to me and says, my client doesn't respect me. And I said, no, you're the one that created that environment because I gave you the autonomy. I gave you the authority. I gave you the tools. That's for you to do. And that's the reality of having to work in this customer service where most people would apply for a job and say, I have customer service experience when the customer service experience is basically taking a product that the customer is returning. That's not the same. You might have 5 years experience working at Walmart, returning product in a customer service, and basically whatever they return, you say yes to everybody. We can't return the chemical. We can't return the pest. We're not dealing with technology. Responsiveness. I want to get into responsiveness. Because if there's one thing that classifies a technician is being non-responsive. The customer texts them. They're doing a job. It's 45 minutes, an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, they forgot. I tell my people, answer the text, the call right there, no matter what you're doing, stop, answer that call. And if you missed a call, try to call right back, text right back, do something. Because what happens is you're going to forget. He might not mind waiting an hour because he understands, but you're going to forget and it's going to be tomorrow. And you're like, dang it, I forgot about this. We went from being a microwave society in the 90s to being an instant gratification society. Even people who are boomers and Gen Xers cannot accept the fact that you didn't get back to me today on a simple question. There's no reason why they need to wait till tomorrow in their mind. Real-time location on vehicles is necessary for responsiveness. Real-time communication with drivers and technicians is essential. They depend on fast and timely service. Why? Because here's the problem that you have a society that's conditioned to. I ordered an Uber, and they told me he'd be here in 4 minutes because he was here in this location. And at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, they're outside looking at the window to see if that Uber guy's there. You want your food, Uber Eats will deliver it. And I've been at the restaurant and seeing the Uber driver there going, my order is not ready. The client is going to cancel this order. And I'm already here and I'm going to waste a trip. They're used to that instant gratification. And the problem with pest control is we cannot provide instant gratification 90% of the time. Because we're dealing with a biological product. The only thing that's alive in that home is the plants, the people, the pets, and the pests. And none of which we can deal with instantly. So we need to be responsive to the answer or the question very quickly, which is very hard a lot of the times when you're in an attic doing a service and the guy's, you got your phone in your back pocket and you've got a glove on and your hands are full of chemical, you can't answer that phone. I get it. So I tell them, as soon as you're done, respond to this. We're trying to get everything on one system where everybody can see the text so that somebody can respond no matter who it is. Hey, hi, we've got your message. Give me an hour. I'll get back to you. And then the tech can see it and say, hey, listen, this was for you. We ran an interference. The thing is, how do we create a teamwork environment? Well, you can't create a teamwork environment when everybody's being paid on production. And if it's not their problem, they're not going to handle it. We have to compensate people in the right way that creates an environment for people to work and collaborate. Presentation. Are they paying attention to their personal hygiene and cleanliness? You're saying, are they paying attention to how they look to a client? Will the majority of your clients who are making $150,000 to $250,000 a year, who are very conservative, who are baby boomers and Gen Xers, let that technician into the home. And you're saying it should not matter. In this day and age, if he has earrings, the size of quarters and his earlobe is hanging to the ground, it shouldn't matter as long as he's a good technician. It matters to your client. And you are in the customer experience service. Can that technician presence, does he show up with grease stains all over his shirt after he ate a sandwich? Is he shaved? I mean, you're talking about shaving a guy who's had a beard all his life. But I will trim this beard. I will work on it before I ever go see a client. Are they in uniform? Is the van clean? Is that van, to tell somebody that they have to clean their van and how to clean the van and how to make sure that van is clean and show them that cookie crumbs do not belong between the shift panels is stuff that we have to do in part of our training. Think about that for a minute. I want you to listen to me. And you're saying, this is ridiculous what you're saying, Frank, but everyone has experienced it and it's not. At the end of your shift, you're to remove all of your gloves and all of your personal belongings from the vehicle and throw out every trash and not leave a bag of chips in there, and vacuum this vehicle once a week, get it clean, get it washed, because that is the brand. That is the image. You are the brand. You are the image. This is the stuff we have to deal with that nobody ever had to deal with me on. And lastly, we're going to get into follow up and follow through. Do what you say you're going to do. You have to be accountable and take ownership. They want to feel they have ownership, but ownership requires responsibility and due diligence on your part to follow up and follow through and make sure that it's done. And that it's done right to the customer's satisfaction. You're operating in an environment where you're in the field and all this has to get done. And the only way that you can ensure as an owner, and I can ensure, is to do inspections, constant training, follow up, constant training, follow up, constant training, follow up on this. There is no simple way around this. This is part of what you're experiencing. Common sense to you is not common sense. You say people have lost all sense of common sense. No, pest control, there is no common sense in pest control, because if you look at all the chats and you look at all the groups and you look at all the videos that are there, common sense will tell you that you take DE and you spread it across a bedroom and you throw it all over the place and then you vacuum it up and the dust goes everywhere and now you're going to have lung damage. That's common sense. Common sense will tell you in pest control by reading the label that you apply it as a crack and crevice. You don't go and do it on the floor everywhere. That's not what you do. But yet again, what we see as common sense is, oh, how hard can this job be? Walk around all day with a little spray can because that's what he's seen. You see, that's the image of spray something when it's not what we do. We're further and foremost in the customer service business. We should be delivering customer wow. And if you don't have people that have that attention to detail, that are passionate about the customer wow, that they're only looking at their technical abilities and saying, I'm introverted, but I'm a good technician, understand that the customer experience is going to trump anything else, even if you did the greatest job. So these are the 5 skills that are needed. It's social skills, communication skills, responsiveness, their presentation, and follow-up. If you can get these 5 things fixed from your technicians, from the people that you're hiring, that they understand it, be able to, the only way I can evaluate these skills. This is why I have, a tiered pay and a tiered evaluation when I hire new technicians, because I can do the background check. I can do the video interview. I can do the in-person interview. I can do the psychological profile. I can do the skills test analysis for customer service. I can get all those answers satisfactory and get a good score. And then when I put them in front of a person, they totally fall apart because they're comfortable in an environment where they're getting tested all the time. These are students. And they're into teaching and learning. But when it comes to actually, so what I do is your first 40 hours, we have to evaluate all this. And if by 40 hours, I'm not satisfied that you're going to be able to do this job, I'm letting you go. Because I'm looking at the soft skills, not the hard. I don't care how he places his bait, although that's important. What I'm looking for is, how is he interacting with that client? Does that client like him? Is he likable? Because if the client doesn't like him, and clients don't like your technician, I don't care how good he is, they're not going to want him in the house. He's got to be a likable person. And so I look at 40 hours. After 40 hours, I decide you're going to make it, you're not going to make it. Even if I've invested $200, $300, $400, $500 and a month to hire this guy, I'm not taking him. You got to learn to hire slowly and fire quickly. And you have to be saying, but you got to get the emotionalism that I've invested this much in this guy already, and now you're better off letting him go and doing something else with his life that he's going to be better at than for you to invest 6 months into him or a year and then become a disaster, become an HR problem, become a customer service problem that you can't overcome. And it takes practice. It takes experience. It takes the heartache. It takes gut-wrenching decisions that you have to make. And this is why I bring a lot of these guys on as part-time. And I say, look, you got a full-time job now? Keep your full-time job. Come work 2 to 3 hours a night, after work on a Saturday. I'll hire you part-time, see how you do on that basis, and I'll decide if I'm going to keep you, and then you can quit your full-time job, and then I'll make you an offer at X amount per hour, because we got everything worked out to where, hey, if you're making $14, $15 an hour and you're doing a similar job somewhere else, and this is more appealing to you, then we can offer you a package that's going to work. And this is how we do this, because it allows us to evaluate. Is he going to be able to work alone? Is he going to be able to relate to this client? We can observe all this without a major commitment on their part of saying, I got to quit my job to do this job when I'm unsure if I'm going to make it. Because I would hate to fire the guy and let him go after he's quit his job and come to work for us when he didn't have all the skills, because we weren't able to evaluate all those skills. Nobody can. So I hope this helps you. Until next time, guys, have a pestacular day.
We hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. Until next time, have a pestacular day.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.